for this assignment. I'm hoping the tips and tricks I show you are going to be helpful throughout your academic career. And I am going to give you opportunities throughout to do your own searching. So I really invite you when it is time for an activity and it's time to look for a certain kind of information, please take the opportunity right now to do that searching. So if you already know which park you're doing, then definitely use that. If you haven't chosen yet, it's an opportunity to kind of investigate. If you have a few candidates in mind, you can kind of see what's available for each, and that may actually help you to make your decision, because if there's lots of information available for one of them, then that's an easy choice. If you have any questions or comments to make at any time, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, whatever is most comfortable for you. And these slides should be available to you on CourseLink shortly, if not already. And it is being recorded too, so you can check it out later. So it's really going to be two chunks. First, we're going to talk about finding text sources. And as Nadia was saying, so I do kind of talk a little bit about searching Google and using that information you find, because there's certainly plenty of useful stuff there, but a big focus as well on kind of finding scholarly sources and more of an expert critique rather than like the random stuff you find on Google that you might not know where it comes from. So we'll talk a lot about text sources and different kinds of text sources and how to find them, as well as how to find images, because you do need, you need photos, you need plans and various types of images, and sort of how to go about doing that. So before we jump in, I just want to see what everyone would kind of do without any sort of support or instruction from me. So you imagine that you need to find both text sources and images about Paley Park, which is the example I'm going to use today. So what strategies might you use? What places might you go? What sorts of words might you type in? Please put your answers in the chat. So I'm just going to give you like 20, 30 seconds. Right off the bat, if you had to do this, how would you go about it? As a source of images, absolutely. Google Earth, yeah. So Google Earth can provide a nice satellite image, which can be very helpful if you need that aerial view. Site information on a city website, yeah, that's a great idea. If it's a city park, they may have really good information about the park, kind of even just general information about it. Type keywords into the search bar. I'm assuming that's Google, but there's lots of other search bars you may encounter. Yeah, a few votes for Google Earth, actually. Find a few articles. Yeah, I'd be curious where you're going to find the articles, but certainly journal articles and looking for journal articles is a really important thing to do for this project. Brandon is actually suggesting, so both Google Scholar, so Google Scholar is a great source of scholarly journal articles and books, and Britannica. So that's, I assume you mean like the Encyclopedia Britannica, like an encyclopedia. We do have some access to encyclopedias in the library. I don't think I'm going to talk about them today, actually, but you certainly could use an encyclopedia. And another vote for Google Scholar and Google in general. So I'm hearing a theme. Google products are very helpful. Google Earth, Google Scholar. I'm actually going to talk about Google Books, which is one I haven't seen anyone mention, but also extremely helpful. Just plain Google. So that makes perfect sense. And that is also where I'm going to start. So thank you all for sharing your suggestions and ideas. And I can see you are, you're off to the right start. So we're going to first talk. So we're talking about text-based sources. I'm going to start with websites. So, super obvious, Google the name of the project, the park, perhaps the firm that designed it, the architect, for example. A really great source of information to jump off from is the firm or architect's website. So if they have a website, most of them do, if they're still operating, start off with that. You often will get lovely photos, maybe some plans, drawings, maybe a little bit of their own perspective on the project and sort of their explanation of what they were going for, what their intent was, perhaps history, could be all kinds of useful things. So if you can find that architect's or firm's website, great place to start. With Paley Park, in fact, it was created, you all know, in the 60s, and actually the architect that created it seems to be defunct, because I used to be able to find a website for them and it is totally gone off of the web and it doesn't seem to exist anymore. So they must be out of business. So there is unfortunately no website that I could find anymore for this architect, but chances are that your project will have one, so definitely check that out. Another great place, both for context and just sort of basic information about your park, like for example, maybe you don't even know who the architect is, you can find that out on Wikipedia. So look up your park on Wikipedia just to get some basic context. You wouldn't necessarily cite Wikipedia, but great place to get basic context, some basic information about your park. Other places to go, so there's a few websites, and kind of what is helpful about these websites is either they're a good source of kind of images and plans and drawings and things like that, and or they point you to scholarly sources on your topic. So they're going to collect some sources that you can then use and cite in your project. So it's a kind of shortcut to finding those scholarly sources. And I'm going to do a little tour. Just when I was looking into Paley Park, not knowing anything about it, this is how I learned just using Google and got the context of Paley Park and sort of what it was all about and things like that. So I just Googled the name of the park, super easy. So often Wikipedia is going to be your first link. If there was if there was a page on the architect's website about it, that may come up. It didn't, of course. For this one, like I said, it's the architect the firm seems to be out of business. And then there's, TripAdvisor and things like that. And sometimes that can be a good source of photos and images as well. And there's a few other websites that came up that turned out to be helpful jumping off points. So I would say a first step is definitely to Google the park and perhaps the architect and find their website and explore what's available there. So I went to the Wikipedia article. It was very helpful in giving me some context about the park. Again, when I started doing this, I didn't know anything about it. So it gave me lots of sort of useful information right off the bat. And then there's really good references at the bottom that you can access as well. So there's a New York Times article, and there's entries for this park on other websites, which I will show you. Also, there's often good images, and often there are images that you can reuse because they are in the public domain or they've been licensed for reuse. So a really great source of images as well. So this is one website that does have lots of good information on certain sort of landmarks and places, including Paley Park, called the Cultural Landscape Foundation. And again, they're really giving you a lot of history and context here and just describing the park. This project for public spaces, same kind of deal. It's giving you some context, it's giving you some information about the park. And then this website, so if your park shows up here, this is a nice source of information. It's created by the Architecture Week, which I think is a magazine. It's the Great Buildings Collection. And what I really like about the Great Buildings Collection is it has lots of sources. So it gives you like not much useful information really that I didn't already know, but it did point me towards a couple of books and scholarly articles that discuss Paley Park. And so this was a nice jumping off point. And I'll show you a little later sort of how I use these citations to find the full text of these sources. So that's it, not rocket science, but I'm going to give you a couple of moments right now to do your own searching. So you're just looking for websites at the moment. Start with Google, start with Wikipedia, start with one of these other websites, have a look around. I'm just going to give you, I'm going to say 3 minutes. I'm actually have any questions, comments you'd like to make. Did you find something interesting? Did you get stuck somewhere? Feel free to put it in the chat. So hearing nothing, I will carry on. But if you do think of a question or comment, feel free to put it in the chat at any time. So we're going to move on to looking for books. And I am going to focus mostly on scholarly books right now. But the methods I'm going to show you will also find non-scholarly books. But we are kind of looking for scholarly books, which are books that you're going to find in the University of Guelph Library. So there are, of course, a variety of ways to identify relevant books. And one of them is just to, if you find references to books in other text sources you found. So if you are on a website like Wikipedia, or you are in a journal article and you find a reference to a book that's got information on your topic, there you go, you've identified the book. The other way to identify books that are on your topic is actually to use Google Books. Because one of the challenges with looking for books about a particular park is it's pretty rare that there's an entire book written about one park. That's fairly rare. There might be a book about one particular architect, and there are lots of books that kind of collect information about lots of different parks or even lots of different public spaces. But if you just go to the library catalog like Omni, which is our library catalog that contains all of our books and journal articles, if we search for the name of our park in there, it's likely that we will retrieve no results, because all it's searching in is the title of the book and perhaps the table of contents. And so if your book is only mentioned somewhere deep inside, or if your park is only mentioned somewhere deep inside the book, you won't find it with an Omni search for the name of your park. But if we do Google Books, what it is it actually searches all of the scanned actual full text of millions of books in libraries around the world. So if your park is mentioned even inside the book, Google Books is going to identify that book for you. So it's a really, really nice tool anytime you're searching for something that may only be discussed for a couple of pages inside like a much larger book. So I'm going to show you how to use that if you've never used it before. But first, what I'm going to do is talk to you about if you found a reference to a book in another source, how to get the full text of the book, how to actually get your hands on the book so you can read the whole thing. So mostly we're going to use Omni, which is our library catalog, and I'll show you how to use that. If we don't have it in Omni, which does happen, sometimes there are books we just don't own, you can request it using Racer Interlibrary Loan, which is a service where you borrow the book from another university library. And I've linked here this word here, Racer. So if you click on that, it will take you to the page on our website that explains how to use Racer. So if you do wind up in that position, just click that link and it'll explain how to do it. All right, so recall on that website we found, it had a bunch of references to different sources that discuss Paley Park. And one of the sources was a book. So it's this Felice Frankel and Jory Johnson, Modern Landscape Architecture, Redefining the Garden, New York, Abbeville Publishers, 1991. So if you ever see that like city, publisher company name, that means it's a book. So we know that this book seems to talk about Paley Park. So we are going to go and get the full text of it because we want to be able to read what it has to say. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to copy the whole title of the book. So Modern Landscape Architecture, Redefining the Garden. We're going to go to Omni, which again is our library catalog. If you don't know where Omni is, let me just quickly show you. So this is the library homepage. This search box in the middle here, this is Omni. So you type a couple of words into there and it's searching all of our books or journal articles and other stuff, mostly books and articles. So this is a screenshot of the results of the search in Omni. So when I pasted this title in, you can see we actually have it. The way you know we have it, first of all, it comes up as a result. Second, it says available at McLaughlin Library book stacks, and then it gives you this call number, which is like a couple of letters. So in this case, SB, and then it's a bunch of numbers. So we have 470.53.J64. So if you have never looked up a book using its call number, like if you've never actually had to go into a library and like look for a book, which like if you've never done it, can be a bit confusing. Like what do those numbers mean? I don't know. We have a handy little button on every print book, which is this where is it button. So if you need to go into the library and find a book and you don't know how to do that, click on where is it? And it's going to show you a little map of our library, and it's going to highlight in green the shelf where you're going to find that book. So you can see it's in the basement, and it's opposite the computer lab. So this is like the triple elevators here, and then you just go out the triple elevators, hang a left, and then the bookshelves in front of you. That's where you're going to find this book. So then you just are looking at the spine of the book, and it's going to have the call numbers. So first you get to the SB section. So it's going to be in alphabetical order. You're going to get to the SBs, then you're going to go by the numbers, and it's going to start with 1 and it's going to go up. And once you look at the shelves, you're going to see it's fairly self-explanatory. If you do get lost, you're not sure how to find the book, it's too much, Go to the Ask Us desk, which is when you first enter the library. There's a big desk with lots of people sitting at it. Ask somebody there and they will definitely help you make sure you get your hands on the book. But this where is button is enough to get most people kind of to the right spot. So then once you find the book, you can actually pull it off the shelf. You can look through it. If you decide it's something you want to use, you can sign it out and take it home. All right, so that was a print book where we knew the title of the book. So now we're going to go to Google Books and we're going to try to find more books that talk about Paley Park. And very simple at Google Books. So it's just books.google.ca. And you're going to search for Paley Park. So again, all we're doing is we're just looking for the words Paley Park somewhere in the full text of these books. And there's actually several books that mention Paley Park. So there's two that pop up here. So there's this privately owned public space, and it gives you a little snippet even of what's inside. So you can even read a little preview to see, like, is it just briefly mentioned and it's not worth getting, or is there like a decent description that is worth getting? So let's say we want to see some more about this privately owned public space and see more about what's inside. So you just click on it, and it will actually show you a scan of some of the pages inside the book. So this is really helpful. You can see there's actually like a decent several page discussion of Paley Park. So you can get a sense of, like, is this worth actually getting the full text? But one of the difficulties with Google Books is you can't usually read the entire book from within Google Books. So even though it's all scanned, because of copyright restrictions, if you're just sort of scrolling through the book, eventually it'll say like, oh, this page is not available, or like this, you can't, like, you've used up your number of pages or some wording like that. So the point is, you can use this to identify a relevant book. You can see inside to make sure it's useful or going to be useful. Then you can go to the University of Guelph Library, go back to Omni and search for this book, and then actually get access to the full text through the library. So again, I'm going to show you how to do that. So very similar to before, we are going to copy the entire title. So this privately owned public space, the New York City Experience, paste it in, and you'll see again, we have a copy. And exactly the same thing here, available at McLaughlin Library Book Stack. So again, that's a print book. We got the call number. We could click on where is it, and we can find where it is. So this one's on the 3rd floor. It's in this row, this bookshelf, sort of opposite the study carrels, like near the windows. So again, you go to the library, you can pick it out. And then there was also, if you recall, when we searched in Google Books, there was also this book, Great City Parks. And this one we have available online, which is very nice. So again, we searched Great City Parks, but you can see here it says available online. That means it's an ebook, which is, of course, more convenient than having to go to the library. So to access that, you're going to scroll down, you're going to find view online, and you're just going to choose whatever link is under there. In this case, it says U of G ebooks. Just click on that, and it'll bring you to a website. And often there's multiple ways to view it. So it might just be like HTML or EPUB, which is just a e-reader format. Probably you won't end up using that. The easiest thing is the PDF. So just look for the PDF full text. You should be able to click that. And often you can just download the PDF and just keep it. So very nice. All right. And then there's a whole chapter on Paley Park in this Great City Parks. And I know that this is like a book that could be very helpful to a lot of you, this Great City Parks, because they have tons of different sort of famous parks, like a good chapter on quite a few of them. So this might be a nice place to start for some of you as well. All right, so that was a discussion of books. What I'd love for you to now do, I'm going to give you another 3 minutes to go and see if you can find books. So then the next type of text source, and actually I think the last type of text source I'm going to talk about is scholarly journal articles. And so probably the primary way to go about finding these is to go to an article database or a search engine that searches scholarly information. So the two databases that are really specific to kind of art and architecture, the first one I've listed here is the Avery Index to Architecture Periodicals. And I would really encourage you to try this out, to look for your park in this database. It's kind of the #1 database for architecture, including landscape architecture, scholarly journals. Check that out for sure. And I'm going to demonstrate a little bit about how to use it. Another database, scholarly database that can be helpful is Art Abstract / Art Index Retrospective. And so either one of these you can access just by clicking the link here. And the other way you can access these, and all of our scholarly databases actually, is from the library homepage. So if you scroll down a little bit, under today's hours, you're going to find this icon here that says Journal Databases. So if you click on that icon, it's going to take you to the jumping off point for all of our subscription databases. Because one thing to know about both of these databases is that you only have access to it because the library, well, we take your tuition money and we put it together and we purchase access to a scholarly or a lot of scholarly databases on your behalf. So you can only access them if they know that you're a U of G person. And the way to make sure that it knows you're a U of G person is to go in through the library. So if you simply Google those databases, you'll hit a paywall, excuse me, or you won't even be able to access it. So go in through here. So there's lots of ways to access it. We have like 600 and some odd databases, so that's kind of a lot. You can narrow by subject here. So you could scroll down to like LARC, landscape architecture, and narrow just to landscape architecture databases. Now, mind you, there's still 52 databases. That's kind of a lot. So the other way, and probably the best way, is just to search for the name of the database that you want. So if we want the Avery index, you can just search Avery, and there's the Avery index. So if you click on this, it's going to take you right in. You may have to log in using your single sign-on, like your U of G credentials, to be granted access. But this way, either on or off campus, you will be able to access it. So this is a good way to access these. Or again, you'll have these slides, so you can just click on these, and this is using the special URL that will also grant you access. So choose either one of those. And then the other option that folks in the chat earlier mentioned is Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is also, it's like a totally different thing, but also a great way to search for scholarly articles. And one little trick I want to share with you. So if you don't, I'm sure you can all find your way to Google Scholar, but just in case, I'll put the link in here. So this is something that you actually can just go there. It's free to everybody. You don't have to go in through the library. But if you use Google Scholar to find scholarly articles, you may hit paywalls because the journal articles themselves often are not freely available. Again, we subscribe to journals on your behalf. So if you would like to find the full text of scholarly articles through Google Scholar, you can change some settings on your Google Scholar to link you into the U of G library. So let me show you how to do that. So let's just actually just do a test search so you can see what I mean. So let's search for Paley Park. So some of these, there are going to be free copies. So if you see this like PDF and you click on it, ideally, I expect it should take me to the full text of that article. So those ones are freely available, but some aren't. And then you will see this link here. If you have your Google Scholar set up, you will see this link, Get It at Guelph. And so what that will do, with any luck, is if I open it, it will actually link me back to Omni, again, the library's catalog of journal articles, books, etc. And ideally, if it all works, it will take me to the full text. So it will. So you can see here is the article. We have it in print apparently, but also online. Obviously online is much more convenient, so let's do that. Underneath your view online full text availability, it's kind of similar to the ebook we saw earlier, but here there's multiple choices. Just pick whichever one. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to choose the Taylor and Francis CRKN. I just happen to know that that's the publisher website, so it might look a little nicer. You can choose any one you want. So here I have to sign in because I haven't done that yet. That's my password manager. So now I've logged in using my single sign-on. It should open up the full text for me. And here's the article. And then you're looking for I always like to download the PDF. Like you can read it in HTML. I don't want to do that. I want the PDF. So I click on PDF. Should open the PDF. I should just be able to download it to my computer, do whatever I do with articles. So if you would like your Google Scholar to also have these buttons that will bring you back to the U of G library in one click, you can set that up. So the way you do it is you go here to the 3 horizontal lines. So the top left corner of Google Scholar, these 3 horizontal lines will open up the sidebar. Then you want to choose settings. So it's just the last option at the bottom there, settings. You're going to choose, again, from that left sidebar, you're going to choose library links. So obviously mine is already set up. So you can see this here. It says University of Guelph Library, get it at Guelph. If you don't have that, just search here for University of Guelph. Whoops. Guelph, and then hit search. And then those options should appear and you can choose them and hit save. And then as long as you have cookies enabled in your browser, every time you open Google Chrome or whatever web browser you're in, it will have those links and you'll be able to get back to the library. So it just saves you a little bit of time. If you don't have those links, what you'd have to do is run the search, find the article, copy the title of the article, go to Omni, paste the title, and then you do the same thing, but it's just like a little bit of extra work. So if you can set this up in your Google Scholar, it will make your Google Scholar experience much more smooth. So if you forget how to do that, we do have a YouTube video that will explain it to you again. And I'm going to quickly show you the YouTube channel at the end because we have a lot of helpful stuff on the YouTube channel. All right. If you have any questions about that, put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to forge ahead. So aside from keyword searching in a scholarly database or in Google Scholar to find journal articles on your park, of course, in earlier text sources, so perhaps you found your Wikipedia article or another website pointed you to a scholarly journal article. So then you got that reference listed in the other text source. So you already know about a journal article. Perhaps you know the title of the journal article already, or you found a book and the book referred to a journal article or something like that in the bibliography or the reference list or something like that. So you can also just go to Omni, paste the title in, and find the full text that way. So, and again, if for whatever reason, like we do have most journal articles, if you would identify a journal article that you need to read that we don't have in the library, again, you can use Racer, which is our interlibrary loan system. We will borrow it for you from another university library. And with journal articles, it'll just be a scan. It'll be a scan of the PDF, or it will be a PDF of the article, a scan of the article, and they'll just email it to you. So very convenient. All right, so a couple of demonstrations of this again. So here we are in the Avery index, and it's a very simple search. We're just searching the name of the park, but notice I've put quotes around Paley Park. And what those quotes are gonna do, it's called phrase searching, and it's telling the database, only show me sources where these 2 words appear as a phrase. So these 2 words in that order with no words in between. And that's just going to narrow it down to articles that actually talk about Paley Park as a phrase and not the word Paley and the word park like separated, because chances are that's not about Paley Park. That's like any article about a park and like a guy named Paley, and that has nothing to do with each other. So if we put quotes around it, it's highly likely that everything is going to be relevant to my park. So just a tip there, super helpful. If you have a name of a park, put quotes around it. And you can see, I think there's 6 results, all definitely about Paley Park. And notice that there are these Get It at Guelph buttons. So that's exactly the same as that link in Google Scholar. It's a nice icon instead of a plain link. And if you click that, it will take you to Omni and it will find the full text for you. So let's say you found this one in this journal called Process Architecture from 1991, and you want to be able to have a look at this article. So again, we're going to click on that Get It at Guelph button, and it's going to take us to Omni. But this one, so if you'll recall what we saw earlier, there was Check Holdings, McLaughlin Library Periodical Collection. That means it's a print resource. Earlier, we also had View Online, and so we could also get it online, very convenient. This one we only have in print, which is actually very rare. The vast majority of our journal holdings are all electronic. landscape architecture is one of those ones where, and I don't know why, is it because of the beautiful photos and plans and drawings and like large format, like just beautiful printing and stuff, that it's all in print still? I don't know. Certainly the older holdings are print. I think newer stuff tends to be electronic now, but like you may need older stuff. It is often print. So it does mean going into the library. It does mean kind of checking shelves and finding it. So that's just a quirk of landscape architecture library stuff. So how to deal with it if you do have a print only article that you need is, so if it says check holdings, periodical collection, you scroll down under get it. It says location items. And then you have to know what issue it is that you need. And often in the database itself, it will actually tell you, right? So here it says process : architecture, February 1991. So we need the issue from February 1991. So when we go here, we're going to look, and often it's show more items because we'll have like many issues from a long time. We've got to find the proper one. Yeah, so here I helpfully screenshotted that again, so you can see what issue we actually need and even the pages it's on. So once you find it on the shelf, you can flip right to the page. So here it was, I found it on the shelf. And it's kind of a neat one because it's both English and Japanese. So it will have the English text and the Japanese text like right side by side. And I understand this is a very good journal. So if you can find an article about your park in this journal, it's very helpful. It's got like really nice drawings. It's got lots of images. So super helpful. And I just took some pictures of the actual article inside so you can see what it looks like. So if you have any questions about that, put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to give you another 5 minutes right now to go specifically looking for journal article sources. So journal articles on your park. And I would really encourage you, like, try Google Scholar if you want, but I would really encourage you to try like either the Avery Index or Art Abstracts, maybe preferably the Avery Index, and just try that out because chances are you've never tried searching in a place like that. So just give it a try. So if you run into any problems, I'm here to help. And again, a reminder, so you can either, I believe in Zoom, you can actually click links on the screen. So try that. Otherwise, go to the library homepage and click on that journal databases link to get into the Avery Index or wherever it is you want to go. So any questions about any of this? So the final chunk is finding sources related to images. So a lot of the plans and drawings are going to be found in other text sources. So you might find them on websites, you might find them in books, you might find them in journal articles. And you will recall that like we already found in the journal article, for example, some plans, some drawings, some photos and images. So it could be that you kind of find that as you go through these other things, and you really have very little need to go individually looking for images and so on. But perhaps you do find yourself in the position of specifically looking for images. And so I just want to share a couple of other places to go to find some images. The first one, so I wanted to circle back. So this is again, the journal article we found earlier on Paley Park, and it did have some really nice drawings, different views that you can use. So again, those text sources are going to have great content on their own. You will find as you do other kinds of searching. Earlier in the chat, people mentioned Google Images. So this is a really like awesome way to look for lots and lots and lots of images. And one thing that I quite like, so Google Images, you know, it's just like an option when you run your search, you can click on images. First of all, it has a lot of really nice filters. So you can filter by size. So if you need it to be like a certain size image, you can filter by that. You can even filter by color, by type, by time, usage rights. So you can filter to show just images that are licensed for reuse. So that can be really useful. And they even have suggestions for ways to narrow your search. So it seems like there's lots of images of this park at night. or lots of images specifically of the fountain or of the trees. And so those suggestions can be really helpful, or you can just add a keyword as well. So if you thought to yourself like, oh, I don't have any pictures of the waterfall at Paley Park waterfall, image Google search should find you some good images as well. So one other place to go to find images is this database called ArtStore. And this is a subscription database. You can actually see in this screenshot up here, it says access provided by University of Guelph. So this is a subscription database. So again, you're going to get to it either from the link that I provided right here, which again is formatted to let you in as a U of G person, or again, you can go back to the A to Z list, the journal databases list I showed you earlier on the website, search ArtStore, and it will bring you to this database of tons and tons and tons and tons of images, really high res, like nice images. And again, we're going to search for our park and we're going to put it in quotes. Now, if you go here and you don't find images of your site, like don't be surprised, because like it's not going to have every single thing, but it's worth a try to see if there are any images that otherwise you wouldn't be able to find. So I put Paley Park in quotes, run a search. And in fact, there are a number of images in here of Paley Park from 1967. So when the park was still really, really new. They may be images that are not otherwise available online. So it can be a nice way to do it, and you can download them and use them. All right. So one more activity. Oh, so Rim says, are we allowed to use YouTube videos, documentaries, etc.? If we can, how do we determine if it's scholarly or not? So I would say like it's very likely that YouTube videos, documentaries are not scholarly. They may be produced by like well-known critics, but I would say generally speaking, they're not scholarly. But Akshin or Nadia, I don't know if you want to weigh in on what your opinion would be of a student citing like a YouTube documentary or something like that.
Yeah, if it's a documentary and it's done by somebody credible, it's good to look at it more as a resource, right? But it will be difficult to capture the images from there. I guess the best way to capture images is through Google image search or through the articles and books, right, to get plans and sections. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with watching a YouTube about that specific park, you know, just making sure that it is actually kind of more of a real kind of documentary. And it may be good just to see more as a high level, like about what the park's about.
Yeah, like some context or some kind of.
That's correct. Yeah.
Like the view, like Rim has added here, or a video published by the design team or firm, like that could be a super interesting perspective, right? Like what do they have to say about their project? Even if, yeah, you're not like freeze framing, like it might be poor quality, right? If you like take a screenshot from the YouTube video, but certainly the commentary, the thoughts, the perspectives presented in a video like that, I think could be really interesting. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to give you all another 5 minutes, and also take this time to circle back to any other types of sources that you wanted to spend, because that might help folks. So one sec, I'm going to stick that in the chat. And then the other thing is, if you are stuck on something, so maybe you basically know how to do your citations, but there is some oddball source that you found, and you're not sure how to cite it in your style, that's what our chat help is really good for. So on any page of the library website, you're going to find this red tab at the bottom right corner that says chat with us. So if you click on that, you're going to see this icon that says chat with a librarian. So assuming we're open, and we are, the chat service is open into the evenings and on weekends, you can click that. And then type in this chat box, and right away you're going to be connected with a library staff member, and we know how to cite stuff. So any weird thing that you're struggling with, put your question in that chat and we can help you out. Because especially I think in this class, you might wind up citing, like, here's a website, here's a YouTube video, here's a like magazine article. I don't know how to cite this. So don't hesitate to ask folks in the library, because we're really happy to help. A feedback survey. So if you think of something later, I do have a feedback survey where there's an opportunity to say anything that's still unclear to you. So if you think of something, put it in that feedback survey. I'll show you the link in a second. And then if I get a lot of questions through there, I can write up some answers in a Word document and send them along. Sometimes you only think of questions later. And also, please do get in touch if you need any help. So I already showed you the chat, the red tab, which you'll find all over the library website on every page. And if you would like a one-on-one appointment, so if you think the chat help, you kind of need more help than that, you can click on this book online appointments icon, which is on the library homepage, right beside journal databases. You'll find this book, and actually it says just book appointments now because we're not necessarily online, although we're totally mostly still doing, at least for research assistants, online stuff. You can click on this. You can choose here, writing, research assistance, and English language support. Click on book a research assistance appointment. So if you are struggling to find sources on your topic, you're getting 0 results everywhere, very frustrating, please get in touch and we'll meet over Teams or some like Zoom or whatever, and we can talk about how to find sources. And I did also want to just plug for you as well. So in addition to the research assistance, we have writing help. We have help if you speak English as an additional language. We have lots of supports for you. Also, if you need help with studying, time management, presentations. I know folks do a lot of kind of presentation type work in this program as well. So if you'd like someone to like give you pointers, critique your presentation, whatever, please get in touch, make an appointment. It's from the exact same book appointments page as the research assistants. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us in the library because we're really happy to help. So this is the feedback survey that I wanted to ask you to answer. So it's just a few quick questions. I put the link in the chat. Just so you can let me know what you thought of today's workshop, as well as ask any additional questions you have. And please ask away right now too, if you want, if you have any questions remaining. While you're doing that, I did want to quickly show you as well. So the library has a YouTube channel. So you can just go to YouTube. And please don't judge my whatever comes up in my YouTube. But if you go here, University of Guelph Library, U of G Library, and I'll put the link in the chat. So we have tons and tons of helpful videos in here, including like how to connect Google Scholar with the library, which is right there. So please check this out as well. Tons of really helpful stuff, all produced by library staff, very specific to U of G. And that's it. So if anyone has any other questions, comments, issues, put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Otherwise, thank you very much for your participation.